as Oscar mentioned, I'll basically be talking about some great sounding indie games and what they're doing right, effectively. So we'll get right into it here. Real quick, just for me, just so you know who is giving you this information, I've been working in games about 4 or 5 years, and I've contributed to something like 200 projects. And I also designed and developed an indie game called Phonopath that is entirely audio-based, and it's achieved something of a cult following in the audio scene. And I've also spent countless hours and dollars on games over my life. But the good news is it's earned me exactly 1 medal thus far. So I'm pretty pumped about that. Super Hexagon at GDC. We'll move right on. All right, so what are we talking about here? So if it has a mouth, if a character in your game has a mouth, it's probably a good call to give it a voice. We'll talk about a few examples where there is no mouth, but it's still worthwhile as well. Conveying environmental and emotional context via music. And the last one, using audio, various techniques to deliver meaningful information and influence player behavior, and not just being a simple paint job, make it pretty. Okay, so first up, the whole mouths and voices deal. The whole thing with voice, we're humans, we understand and relate to the concept of voice very naturally. It doesn't take much for someone to buy into that immediately. If there's a speech balloon and a sound happens, we just understand, okay, that's the sound of their voice. It doesn't matter what it is, we just get it immediately. And the example I'm going to play actually is from a game we worked on recently. It's a Ouya exclusive that Android console came out recently. It's called Towerfall. It's by Matt Makes Games in Vancouver. And the Archer is kind of a primitive, like, SNES look to it, and we did some kind of primitive sound effects as well. And the voices of the characters are actually these kind of primitive beeps and boops of these old kind of synth sounds. And it was kind of eclectic, a little bit stylish at first, but it turned out, like, very functional. And this is actually from...
It's because I'm white. It reflects all colors. And Ben is orange. It's because I'm white. It reflects all colors. And Ben is orange.
Okay, cool. Back over here again. The next part I will be talking about is that voice can be anything. Like I was saying, if it's a speech balloon, it can be literally anything. Like the synth sounds in Towerfall. There's a synth thing going on in Fez as well. And I'll play that here, actually. I might even just ignore my slides. Entirely. As of course. Instrumental instead. Journey. Don't starve. Plays characters.
Bottle of a Doggerhead, sword powder, and bottle pizza puzzle, so we better boom the door.
Creature sounds, it's useful. Well, guys, woo! Solid one. There you go. I was thinking the same thing, actually. So, I mean, immediately you can just buy into a character like that fast. Adds so much more life to the character, even if it's not real words. Like, I mean, it's just little, squeaks and such from a character like that. You can love it so much easier. So next one here is the branding. Let's load this up here immediately.
Super Meat Boy! Nice! Big action! Mega fight! Big action! Mega fight! I am you from the future. There's no time to explain. Follow me to... Oh, Christ! Ah!
Okay. So, there's a lot of value in... actually, I'm going to load the slide. Actually, you need to see this one. So there's a ton of value in saying the name of the game, just because, again, you got it right in front of you, and you have that kind of audio backup as well as support. And the whole thing got me thinking. I went on Facebook, and I asked the question to all my friends. I said, okay, names, like games that say the name of the game on launch. I said, go. I think you saw that, actually. And I got like 40 or 50 responses, and some were really interesting, actually. And I totally have a slide here to support my statement really well. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do it in this here instead. I'm not even going to run this slideshow. So if you can see this here. Here we go. So you got cool borders. Look how these are written. Blade of Steel, Fusion, Frenzy, NBA Jam. These are all completely, it's clear that the people writing these things are hearing it in their head as they're writing it down. And I've got it here, actually. I found these games.
Cool borders!
Blades of Steel.
Fusion Frenzy!
Welcome to NBA Jam! And now, it's Super High Impact Crazy Taxi!
Super Hexagon.
Yeah, so it's like, we got away from India a bit there, but it's so funny that like the Blades of Steel came out in 1988, and every one of these people can just hear it. 7 likes, man. Like it's crazy. So certainly value there. Okay, so into environmental and emotional context via music. Slam through this now. So straight up, establish and support your tone and theme. I'm not talking about emotion so much, because I know everyone always hears about kind of eliciting emotional response from your player using music, and as of course 100% valid. But instead, I want to talk about thinking of supporting your theme and tone from a structural standpoint instead, like an instrumental standpoint. So the example I'm using is from Thomas Was Alone. And for those of you familiar, this game is all about the singularity. So it's all about kind of these AI characters who have Thomas he thinks all of a sudden that he is alone. What a strange first thought to have, he thinks to himself.
If you haven't played that game, go play it. It will absolutely rock you.
I've got it right here too. So here's the music. And it's this lovely mix of these hands on piano, this really kind of inherently human sound, with these chiptune bits. And I mean, that's exactly what the game's all about. It's brilliant. All right, so reflecting visuals and music. I'm not so much talking about games where audio is central to the game mechanic. A game like Bit Trip, or new one coming out, Sound Dodger, Crypt of the Necrodancer, or 140, or Audio Surf, or whatever it might be. I assume that if you're making a game based on audio, you probably know you should make it look like the audio. So instead, here we go. I'm talking more about marrying the audio and visuals and making them kind of mutually aware of each other, whether it affects gameplay or not. So I'll give you a few examples here, and they kind of get further and further away from marriage as far as being tightly mapped. So the first one up here is Braid, and it's the ideal example because the audio has no effect on gameplay whatsoever, but it is a perfect reflection of what's happening in game. Osmos is very similar. You can speed up and slow down time, and the audio changes its suit. It's kind of less so, even less so, more less so. It's a glitched out visual level. The song is actually a glitched out version of another track. Even less so, still goes in. These 4 circles are movable, and it seems like it's kind of meaningful information, and they pulse the beat. They don't have to, but it's clear to see that this game was made as kind of one coherent piece. All right, so deepening your narrative. I'm talking about in terms of storyline, in terms of character backgrounds, game lore, the whole setting. Like you can pull anything out here, and there's a lot that hasn't really been explored in this way. And Bastion does it really, really well here. I'll play another video. So if you haven't played Bastion, the basic kind of crash course is that there's been a horrible calamity, and the kid wakes up, and he basically sees just everyone in ash around him, and he's the only survivor. And at this point in the game, it's a level called Prosper Bluff, and it is probably the best use of a song in a game ever, and it probably will remain that way for a long time. It's astounding. So check it out here. Don't rename it. It's fine. It's fine as Bastion.
The other kid hears something he ain't heard in a long
Starts
while.
with ambience, goes into music now, and that sound is meant to survive what you're trying down. It's as the soundtrack of the level, and it is the player's objective.
And besides, it's like the song goes.
Building strong, 'cause we'll be there before too long.
They'll be here before too long.
Then the narrator narrator quotes the song. It's like I have shivers right now. It's done so well. Ugh, it's incredible. Okay, so carry on here. That's just that could be a 2-hour talk. That level could be a 2-hour talk easily. All right, so next up here, delivering information and influencing player behavior with sound. So right away, announcing elements you can't see. This is a bit of a spoiler alert, but so what's this sound? It's named. Anybody know? It's the zombies from Minecraft, of course. So the first time you play Minecraft, you don't really know what's going on. You kind of you're around there in the day, you're hitting some trees and stuff, and then nightfall comes and there's zombies, and you go, oh no, what do I do? And you dig a hole in the ground and you hole it up so nothing can get in, and you stay there until it goes quiet. So you can't see these zombies. It's kind of an obvious example. I mean, any enemies in any game you can't see, but you hear them first. It's really meaningful to the player, and it will definitely change how they behave. Any horror game ever, Amnesia it's a great example as well. The human mind, the imagination is way worse than what you can actually show the player. So next up here is going to be making suggestions. So another example from Bastion here. It happens a lot throughout the game, actually. The narrator narrates the entire game as you're playing it, of course. And one of the lines is this one here.
Times like this, kids glad he packed trip mines.
Just a gentle reminder to the player that he does have trip mines. And, conveniently, the next scenario the player encounters, there's an enemy spawns here, and they charge at you. You drop a trip mine, dodge away, and they both explode. And you go, wow, that was awesome. And it is an awesome moment, but it might not have happened if the narrator didn't remind you had those mines on you. Of course, if he didn't have the mines on you, he wouldn't say it. The other example here is from Mark of the Ninja from Play. This is noxious gas that kills you the longer you're in it. Its unnerving strings get louder and louder as you approach death, and it's really unnerving. Streamlining gameplay. This is kind of an afterthought, actually, and I can only think of one really good example. And I came on it quite recently. It was in the Indie Showcase. It's called Colors In. You saw it a bit earlier. And they did something really, really bold. In place of a you win screen, it's a game for mobile. You play Cut the Rope and you get 3 stars or 2 stars. It says, you won, you got this time limit or whatever it was. There's always something that says next level. And they completely just nixed that. And they go straight through the next level. And all you hear is a sound that means, hey, good job, you won, next one up. And the game's called Colors In, so it wants you to zone out, and it does that very successfully. Straight to the next level. You want to talk about grabbing your user and tightening that grip? I played through 30 levels and then bought the game because it just came towards the rest of it, right? It's perfect. It's also very bold. The CEO's here, actually. I told him, that was a brave move, man. He's like, yeah, I know. I know. Okay. The last one here is influencing player behavior in the room. So I'm talking about player interaction with each other, so something like local multiplayer. And the example here is Towerfall again. In Towerfall, there's one variant you can choose to have toggled on or off. It's called Cursed Bows. So the hook of Towerfall is that you have a finite number of arrows to shoot. So you have 3 arrows. You shoot all 3 arrows. You can't shoot any more arrows until you go recover those arrows from the wall or the floor or corpses or what have you. But in Cursed Bows mode, if you have no arrows and you try to fire, you die. So it's really, really unforgiving. But every death from that is 100% preventable because it's your own fault. And during playtesting, we found that people would die from Cursed Bows, and one of 2 things would happen. Either they didn't know why they died, like they missed their buddy turning it on or something, and the other one is there wasn't a reaction from their friends, which there should be because he should be shamed. So we corrected this. We made a very unique sound, like a unique sound to that variant, and it's the only sound for a variant in the game. And we tested it again, and people would go like, "Oh, you idiot!" every time, and it was perfect. It was the exact response we're looking for. So it's this one here. 6 arrows, 6, and dead. Just that tiny sound alone just made the atmosphere in the room so much better. It was fantastic. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Not to wind down anyways. It's perfect. So what we talked about, considering a voice, mouth or not, It's relatable and memorable. You have absolute creative freedom. It's no holds barred. Just do what you want and put a speech balloon around it, move a mouth, and people will get it and they'll remember it. And voice is extremely effective in building brands. All this stuff goes together in building brands, really. But in terms of saying the names of the game, you saw the Blades of Steel. It's a 20-year-old game, and it's still remembered by at least 8 people on Facebook. And next up here, conveying environmental and emotional context via music. Establish and support your tone from both an emotional and a structural standpoint. Make your visuals and audio mutually aware. Explore methods to further deepen your narrative, because it's not very explored and it's really cool when it happens. And delivering meaningful information and influencing player behavior. Announce out-of-sight elements in the case of enemies in Minecraft. Make suggestions like the trip mines in Bastion or the unnerving strings coming in Mark of the Ninja. Streamline gameplay like the stinger in Color Zen, and ruin friendships as in the cursed bows in Towerfall. Cool? All right, that's about it. And we got in under time despite the issues. So thank you so much for bearing with me and us. Cheers.
Thanks, Kevin. That was fantastic. It's the first time someone's explained to me how audio could be used to help a multiplayer shared room experience, which is something I think is absolutely fantastic. Because normally, when I'm talking to people, I'm thinking about how many times people take their headphones off and turn the volume down.
Certainly.
And this has been great. So I'm not going to talk waffle on. I'm going to ask you guys, what questions have you got? This is awesome stuff. Give me some questions.
We have time for 1 or 2, I think, yeah.
Alex, you've got a question.
I come from a background with the Commodore Amiga, and in the Commodore Amiga that there were these legendary anthemic melodies that were associated with games. Every game had its sort of motif, and in our games we do the same thing. And you also mentioned announcing the name of the game using a voice. Have you had experience, or have you seen any other uses of audio signatures assigned to a game other than a voice announcement or a distinctive melody?
Other than voice or melody? I can't think of one offhand. I mean, it might be something like a sound effect if it was built. I mean, even just the kind of instrumentation. I think of something like Botanicula. I hear the music from that game, and it's like I know it's from that game immediately. Actually, I hate to bring up Bastion again. I don't really hate to bring up Bastion, but I hate to bring up Bastion again. At Darren Korb's keynote speech, I think 2012 at GDC, he was talking about how he wanted the music in Bastion to be specific to Bastion and recognizable as Bastion immediately. And the way he thought he could do that is by inventing a genre. So he invented a genre called frontier acoustic trip hop. And you listen to the tracks, and it's absolutely the case. So that might be kind of the case. It moves away from specific elements like motifs or voices saying it. But I guess that's another approach you could use.
Okay. Great speech. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
Any more questions? Don't be shy. I struggle to find questions to ask you because this is an area where I'm actually too incompetent to know how incompetent I am when it comes to audio. But I'm genuinely interested. If you're talking to a team and they're trying to sort of work out how to get the best effect, you've highlighted a few things. What do you think is going to be the thing that's going to give them the most bang for their buck in terms of understanding what audio brings? I mean, what's going to change their mindset to get the attitude right to make any audio work?
Will change their mindset?
Well, if they're not used to using audio properly, what was the one lesson you'd get them to think about?
Well, I think that the branding is the biggest one, because typically people that don't see the value in audio are usually the ones who aren't so artistic. So it's people who say, how's it going to affect my bottom line? And being able to build a brand like that. I look at something like Cut the Rope. Here's a real world example. I've got a nephew who's like 6 years old at the time, and we were playing Cut the Rope over the Christmas holidays. Just, on my mobile, he's in my lap watching. And little Om Nom, if you're familiar, a little green guy in the game, he has like 2 sound effects attached to him, and one is when he opens his mouth to catch the candy, and one is when he doesn't catch it. And either way, my nephew was in hysterics. It didn't win or lose. He's having an amazing time. And then he would make the sound all day, and then his mom bought the game, and then he had a Cut the Rope themed birthday party. So that's pretty good, I think. And that's just that sound. I mean, he's going around making the sound all day. He's not going around drawing the picture all day.
I think that's awesome. I was lucky enough that the PlayStation Home guys took the mickey out of me and made a game called Oscar's Lobster Mania based on me eating lobster badly. and I got to do the voiceover, which was basically me going nom 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 nom, which was great fun. It was very funny. So thank you very much, Kevin. That was amazing.
Thank you all.
And